Did you say fun? Safety training should be fun. Forgive me the pun. You must be joking.
No, I'm not joking. Safety is a serious matter and I'm not joking with safety. What I talk about is what is called serious games, which you find already a lot in the Navy. So you take the technology, you take the concept of video games and you apply it to work situation and especially to safety situation like a fire or like evacuation of a vessel. So now if you imagine you have a big cruise ship and you have to evacuate 1,500 people, which are on different levels on the ship, and behind there is a fire and smoke and there may be elderly people and all this, and colleagues who do the job, who don't do the job, different levels of management, from the officers down to the people who are with the passengers in the cabins. Can imagine that this is quite a challenge, and if you see on the screen that you have lost so and so many passengers because you did not do the job correctly, that can be quite exciting. And of course all this is done, as I said, with the latest technology. It's virtual reality. You really have the feeling you're within the ship and it's interactive. So when you talk, something happens. If you move your computer mouse or your controls, something is happening. So it's something which takes all the advantages from these video games and converts it into something which is for our industry. You can do it for major disasters, as I say, without, of course, let's say danger. You can also do it for smaller situations like critical situations, bunkering, firefighting, all these exercises. But it goes further, because if I want to use this technology, it also means that I will create this reality in a way that the trainee really feels he is part of it now, which means he can personalize, he can individualize his alter ego or avatar, or like they say, there will be different levels of difficulty for the beginner, for someone who is already a little bit better trained, so they can advance, like in the video games. There will be a reward in the sense of you get promoted, at least on the screen. So you start as an ordinary seaman and maybe one day you're an officer and why not even a master. And there's of course competition, no? Because what is interesting for people when they play is, well, who's the best, no? And in this case, who, if we take the cruise ship, who will evacuate fastest without losses, no? So you have different crew members or teams, no? Because you can play it as a team, then it becomes even more effective. And well, the one who did it fastest without any injuries, they have won. So there will be a lot of stress for the people without any danger. And there is a further advantage for the trainer, because as every move the trainee does on the screen is logged, because this is in the program, you can see the trainer afterwards where the student made a mistake, where he did not, let's say, respect the procedures. And also the student can see where he made a mistake. And a further advantage of this system is that you see how the trainee will react under stress. It's not 100% like the real situation, but it comes quite close. So you know this crew member is able to withstand stress and in a difficult situation keep his calm, and another one, well, maybe he gets very nervous. No? So as you see, there are many advantages, and well.
In fact, you talk about simulators.
Yes, I use the concept, the idea, the technology of simulators. And by the way, who was first with simulators? The arcade games where you could pretend to be a Formula 1 racing driver, or the simulators for the big tankers, for the VLCCs. So the difference with my idea is that the game philosophy, like we said, with rewards, with competition, with promotion, with the stress, with the personalization of the person you are on the screen, this I want to integrate, which is in the normal simulators not the case. No? And there is a further point, which is what I call the man interface. The simulators which we have in shipping nowadays is for the engine. Okay, how will I, as a man, operate the engine? So make sure that it works well. Or on the bridge with the radars or for the radios, how will I make them work? So there's a machine and there's a person, and that's the simulation of the machine for the person, so in order not to break the machine. My idea is to simulate the relation between two people, between two human beings, like a passenger on a passenger ship and the crew member, like two officers or different officers in different situations, where there's an interaction between human beings, what I call the man-man interface.
So, bridge team management with the virtual team?
Yes, that could be one application, bridge team management, with a virtual team where you play it all on your own, and all the other people on the bridge, they are simulated by the machine. Or you play it as a team, so you have in different rooms or in different locations, you have people who pretend to be the master, the officer, the helmsman, and then they have to do what they have to do. And you can make it then more interesting by making it more complicated, like what you do after grounding, what you do after collision. So where you have all this interaction in real time between people who have to take decisions, very often on the basis of not sufficient information.
I agree that can be quite dramatic and get your adrenaline running, but you also said your proposal is inexpensive. Don't you think that training using such sophisticated tools have a price?
Of course it has a price, it's not for free, but it all depends how far you want to go. So if you want to create your perfect ship, the perfect copy of the one you're working on, and with the virtual reality which corresponds to the latest game technology, yes, it will be expensive. But it's not necessary to go as far. So if you take the technology of video games, let's say 2 years ago, then if you say, okay, I create a ship type to start, I'm not going to have my ship right from the beginning, so you create a ship type, then already it's less expensive. Then if you have created once one part of your ship, like the forecastle, you can use it for different situations. On the forecastle you can have a situation of towing, of letting the anchor go, of safety exercise. It's always the same environment, and you only have to put the person. So already this makes it less expensive. Then of course it also depends on the copies you sell. So if you make only 5 copies for 5 companies, it's of course much more expensive than selling 500. And I really have the larger picture because first of all you create some parts of the ship, of a ship type. And then you put all these parts together like a building block, and you create a larger environment. So you have the bridge, you have the engine room, you have, let's say, the pump room on a tanker. And in every situation, in every of these locations, something is happening. And once I've created them, I can link them, and I can put interdependence. So what is happening in the engine room will influence what is going on the bridge, what is going on in the pump room will influence the people who are working in the engine room, and so on. And as I said, the man-to-man interface, so people who take decisions and others who depend on these decisions. The master can only order, let's say, the evacuation of the vessel if he knows everybody is at his muster stations. If he doesn't get the information, well, he's in a difficult situation. And you can even introduce the communication with shore, so what is coming from the shore and which, like the DPA, which is also one more point. So the situation becomes more and more complex and more dynamic now. So if you want to go the whole hog right from the start, yes, it's expensive. But if you start with small things, which are already very useful, I think the price is very acceptable. And let's not forget with what we compare it. The relation is, as we said, sending a trainer to the ship, which is very expensive, and also the trainer comes to the ship who will only train the person who's there. Whereas once you have this program, this game, you can use it as many times as you want. So it's not only for the people who are right now on the ship, it's also for the next crew and the next, and so on. And that you don't pay again. Once you have one workstation with the copy, okay, you can use it as often as you need.